country or group of countries to look at for trade?
You are asking a person who's been to 38 of the 55 African countries, so you're going to get a very broad answer because I have an affinity with all the countries. What I can say is that the starting point is to look at those countries where there are existing bilateral trade agreements with the United States, looking at the opportunity that resonates with the field or the area that you are in for investment.
Thank you. So essentially saying, don't make your life harder. Look where there's already a track laid and go after that. Do you have anything to add to that?
She talked about the AfCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. But why is this really important? Let's go to the point that she made about finding countries is the highest form of political risk insurance or risk insurance with country. The last bilateral investment treaty was signed in 2008. It was with Rwanda. And anything should happen to your investment, you'll get your money back. The other country that has a surprising, this is 1967. It's a very old treaty and it's still in place right now.
Let me start with ECOWAS. Africa, which is really growing very fast. The East African community has a bilateral, not investment treaty, but they have a bilateral agreement. They call them TPACs. If you ask me which country I would invest in, I will answer it from two perspectives. First, I have to say that the United States has a very strict code for investment advisors. The country that I would go to is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe sits on such great territory. If you want to see Zimbabwe as an investment destination, it has irrigation systems throughout the country. In other words, it doesn't matter what you do, Zimbabwe will provide you with an agricultural aspect. So Zimbabwe is where I would go.
So that's very interesting. So you're saying Zimbabwe for agriculture, especially because of the irrigation system, but also because of the commerce potential since it has ports that's available to move goods. I would love to, I know you have a big passion for impoverished communities, underrepresented communities, really working, navigating that, breaking that poverty cycle. In the context of U.S. Africa trade, what can either region do to help break these cycles, particularly in Africa?
So I think that, or at least the model that I followed, is that to go to each region and identify one champion country that has the potential from too many areas and also can reach out to the other countries.
Thank you. And I really find intriguing that quest to find that champion and then promote that champion, especially when we're all neighbors, but everybody wants their country to do really well, right, and be the lead. So that's a very interesting take. Now on this aspect of champions, is there a specific industry per region that you say we should champion as of each region? So would you say, okay, the South African countries, they should champion this particular industry? What would you say, Dennis?
That question is actually very hard. It sounds like it's easy, but it's really, really hard. So let me try and break it down in the best way I know how. The East African community has what they call a customs external tariff. It means that if you bring a good from the United States into Kenya, for example, and it's wheat from Ohio, Kenya will charge you between 13 and 25% because that's what the East African community has agreed. But let's talk about it from the business perspective. There is one industry that has been consistently viable, which is the cotton to cloth industry. Like Benin, Togo, Niger, and Mali are sitting there on very comfortable territory because they're considered the big four. And yet it's very, very viable. It will lead to instant employment. In other words, you can employ people from the farmer all the way down to the expert that actually stitches the clothes.
Thank you so much. And that's really interesting coming from the perspective at doing this from inside one country. rather than focusing on which country has specific strengths in building it. I think Ghana, over the last couple of years, there's been an issue about cocoa and being an additive manufacturer, right? Pumela, what would you think along this line of reasoning within, whether it's trade across countries, trade specifically with the U.S. as well?
Firstly, I just want to add on to what my brother has said about creating value chains across different countries. For example, Botswana has a lot of cows, and then that produces leather. And now the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to allow that the leather that is used in cars, it comes from Botswana, and then the cars are assembled in South Africa. But only one road out of the 9 has been built to connect the whole continent. So there's an opportunity, but I think now the African Union and all the African states are very, very willing to work together to make the dream of a connected Africa a reality. I keep on pointing there because that's where we showed it.
What would you say from a UN perspective or policy perspective? Who should be included in those negotiations?
First, as a people, because I think that the voices of the people are not heard enough. They are not looked at from the right perspective. Tons of them, and I have not seen the people. We talk about them in it, but we don't talk to them. We don't understand what is their capabilities. And the second problem, I think, is that we always look at these people, that they have a problem. We don't look at the solution that they might bring in. And that's another area of problem.
The people, right? How are we, maybe we're diving too deep into this, but how are we supposed to get their opinions and help them? Are we supposed to help them organize to voice what they want? What is the role of leaders, whether it is from governments, whether it's from institutions, whether it's from the UN?
I think there is one middle layer that has to be the bridge between the UN and the leaders and between the people. And this is us, to really put this layer in the right way by looking into, going deep into the country, visiting the country, knowing what are the problems and what they can offer. Because I think that the gap here is that the people who have the solution are very deep in the society, in the root, that by the time they come out, it's too late and they are not heard.
You said in the previous panel where information is symmetry, right? And we're talking about between countries, but even with and the best way is being on the ground. But from Heather, your point is, it's not even within a country, the local people who are literally in the town or the township need to have a middle communication source with the leaders so we can get better communication.
Because we keep on talking about the Western Africa, but how come I cannot ship something from South Africa to Egypt and I can ship it from South Africa to the US? It just doesn't make sense because it's not the leader's job, it's our job. So we have to do something about it in the middle. We have to connect with each other first, then connect the people, then go to the leaders and tell them, you see, we connected itself, so please do something about it.
There is a lot of additive value we can do across countries within Africa. 2, resource sharing or focusing resources, so not just additive, but focusing on, providing different things across the country. And 3, some of the answers that the leaders are missing are at the very local level. So we have to figure out that middle person that can connect those dots.
And what's currently happening at the moment is that America is outsourcing some of its business services to the young people in Africa who are full of skill, who know technology, who are innovative, and that presents an opportunity as well for trade and collaboration in terms of services. Because I know in this discussion we focused a lot on the primary sector, the secondary sector, and we have not looked at the tertiary sector, which is services economy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.